Hi, welcome to Ready, Spotlight, Go Live. I'm Daya and I am the assistant producer of Blissful Studios. And today we have a special guest, and he is none other than Benjamin Loh. As the youngest certified speaking professional in Asia and accolade accorded to the top 12% of professional speakers globally, an associate certified coach with the International Coach Federation, regional author, Benjamin Loh has empowered over 120 senior leaders individually in topics like strategic communications, public speaking, and presentation skills as the executive presenting coach. In the role of a professional millennial speaker, he has also partnered over 55,000 executive clients and entrepreneurs, professionals, directors, and CEOs over 9 countries in Asia, from corporations like ANZ Bank, MAS, Porsche, and UOB Bank to enhance their performance on stage and communicate effectively across generations. So let's welcome Ben. Hi Ben.
Hello, Hidayah.
Hi. So how are you?
I am feeling good, still energized. Now my routines are kind of different right now. I have a 5-month-old. He's going to turn 6 months. Yeah, so it's like he's a bundle of joy. It gives me a new lease of motivation. But as with him being my life, you have to change all my work cycles. So I usually be up about 6 plus a.m. To get ready. But anyhow, I am definitely excited to share whatever you've curated and prepare for this live show today.
Okay, so before we start, just going to say congratulations on your newborn.
Yeah, thank you so
I
much.
saw his stories, like so cute,
Yeah.
baby. Anyway, so you are a founder of Flare Communications, right?
Correct.
Can you share with our audience on what is Flare Communications all about?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to Hidayah as well as Blissful Studios for having me on set. Flare Communications is a company that I founded in 2014. And we've been in the existence, in fact, much earlier on, because we went from a sole proprietor, which is me, myself, and I, to Flare Communications, where we boutique and curate a group of trainers as well as coaches, where we serve corporations and leaders like MAS, which is the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Porsche, MSC Shipping, to name a few. And typically when we go into these different organizations, our key role is really to help leaders to bridge gaps. So the first gap that we try to bridge is the one in terms of communicating across generations. So Hidayah, very sensitive, I shall not ask you the age, but are you a Gen Y or Gen Z? Gen Z, typically you'll be a Gen Z if you are born later than 1990.
Gen Z.
Okay,
Yeah.
she's a Gen Z. So typically a lot of corporations these days are struggling because you have the management who are in the Gen X layer and they have to communicate with the Gen Ys and or millennials synonymously as well as the Gen Z. And one of the biggest gap is in terms of the communications as well as a relationship gap that doesn't allow them to really understand people like Hidayah, understand their motivations, their ambitions, as well as aspirations. So how do we then close the gap? So that's the first thing that I do. Secondly, in my day-to-day work, I also do help corporate leaders in terms of the communications gap. So in this world that we live in, whether in terms of virtual or physical speaking, there is a lot of things that goes behind the background. So for example, this whole entire set, I can really just sit down, relax, and do my thing because we have 2 very wonderful gentlemen, Amiru as well as us, who are making sure this entire presentation goes on live and well. But on top of that, there's still the messaging, there's still the delivery piece. And I typically work with a lot of forward-looking as well as very conscientious professional corporate leaders who really want to make an impact in whatever they say, how they say, whenever they say, so that they are able to nail these communications moments to the T. So in a nutshell, I really help them to bridge the gap between generations as well as bridge the gap between they as presenters as well as their audience in all the big and small speaking engagements.
Okay, thank you. All right, so for today's live, Ben will be sharing with us the importance of motivating your team online because right now it's COVID, so we cannot physically talk to each other.
Yep.
And hence, today's title will be The Hidden Mystery Behind Motivating Your Team. And of course, with Ben's expertise, the hidden mystery is obviously communication. And I feel that I'm quite okay. I'm just gonna say that I'm 23 years old. Okay, so
wow, now I feel kind of old already. Counting the age difference. But anyhow, she's still the star, right? She doesn't look her age, and I think that's a compliment, by the way.
Okay, so out of my 23 years of life, I only have 5 years of work experience, and I know that I've met a number of business leaders and also team leaders, and I feel that as business leaders, they have the need to do their best for the team, and they always try their best to be the best for the team and keep pushing their team. And there are a lot of things that they can do to be a greater team. And one of which is that they can be a greater leader by appreciating us as a team, recognizing our efforts and accomplishments, and also being the source of motivation for us, like always pushing their team to do their best. So how have you been, I'm just curious, how have you been communicating with your clients who are also solopreneurs, right? Most of them. Like, how have you been communicating with them online? Like, how have you been teaching them how they can do their best?
So I would say the clientele that I work with, they are pretty diverse. So much of them, or rather a big part of them, are corporate leaders. And like what Hidayah has just mentioned, a lot of them are managing remote teams as well. So they could be newly risen managers to even the SME owners, which I oftentimes do get to work to as well. So the challenges that you mentioned, pretty clear, because with the distance, people do not get to see each other in person. So what used to be the pre-COVID norm has really sort of, I would say, moved into a new normal. And again, I hate to use this word new normal because we are already 1.5 years into this whole entire phase. But I want to say that, as much as, it's something that should be the case, I still do see whether it's corporate leaders or business leaders still not getting very comfortable in terms of doing check-ins with your team, right? Not using the Zoom or virtual communications as a way of surveillance rather than as a way of a connection, right? So for example, a surveillance is imagine, oh, Hidayah, I want you to turn on your Zoom so that I can know what you're doing from 8 to 5, right? So that's surveillance. Rather than, hey, I really hope that you can turn on your video camera so that, I can have a check-in. You're the usual cheery self, and, in our line of work, it's important that we are always, keeping track of our own energies and we can present our best self to the people. And the third thing which I do notice is they are on top and beyond the communications aspect. What other big and small things are they doing to ensure the well-being of the employees that they're managing? So these are the key things that usually I do discuss with my clients whenever I have an opportunity to share with them on this topic specifically.
Okay, so from what I see, according to your points, right, it actually depends on the purpose of them, like the purpose of the communication itself. So let me just summarize. So you're trying to say that if they so the purpose of communication, right, it's just if they want to see me online, is either whether they want to know how am I doing, or whether I am doing work or not. Is it something like that?
That's one part of that. So I think, when we go into communications, there's communications for what and what kind of purposes and what kind of intent. Oftentimes I feel when as a corporate leader or a business owner, we are just going through things a lot of the times by the motion. Now tell me if this is true for you. You just have meetings after meetings, Zoom calls after Zoom calls. And many times I often will ask my clients, is this meeting really, really required? Right? Do you really need this Zoom call where you gather the whole entire village, 20 to 30 people, and then you ask people, say, what do you think of this proposal, of this idea? And then as soon as immediate after you ask this whole question, it's quiet. Nobody responds. So I sometimes I come from a very healthy and challenging angle to ask a lot of leaders, like what you just shared with us. What is the purpose? Because if we do not know the purpose of any online communication piece, or even in person, why are we meeting? Are we meeting for the sake of meeting? Then that defeats the point. So one, understand the objective and the purpose of that. I think number two is being clear about who are you speaking with and where are they at. And where are they at? It's not just like a physical component or physical dimension whereby they're at home or at office, but where are they at in terms of the entire work? Are they, for example, knees deep in terms of a project execution and they are really struggling, or are they just newly onboarded and they are very, very blur like sotong, as what we say in Singapore? They need a bit of hand-holding, they need a bit of guidance. So where are they at? I think third thing is, what do we want to get out from the entire meeting or conversation? So sometimes, just asking very simple questions will yield a lot more clarity and hence a lot more definite and helpful actions for the leaders to undertake, whether it's in terms of big and small meetings, town halls, or even like public speaking moments, which are what I help my leaders to prepare themselves for.
Okay, that's very interesting. And it's actually true now that you said it. Okay, talking about speeches, right? I've personally seen your talks, your speeches and presentations, and I also edit most of his videos.
Hopefully, you still can start. You can tolerate my voice after hearing it like for moments and hours and hours and hours.
It's okay. I can do it. Anyways, so I feel that your presentations are always very inspiring towards your audience,
Yep.
and you constantly share past stories of your past clients so that your audience can resonate to it during your speech.
Correct.
So, sorry, just sidetrack a bit. I'm quite curious. How can leaders or our audience here communicate, like motivate their team through storytelling?
Okay, so that's an excellent piece. I think to motivate our people through storytelling, one, you need to first believe in the power of stories. And oftentimes when I work with my clients as well as my students, one, the power of storytelling, let's look at it from a very, very simple point. Hidayah, what's the last movie that you watched?
Quiet Place Too.
A Quiet Place Too. Okay, obviously different era. I don't even know what's the movie. Maybe share with me, what's the movie about?
It's about okay. There's a family of two children, and the children are deaf,
Oh, okay.
and so they communicate through hand signs.
Right.
And then there's this alien that comes to Earth, and they will attack if you make a sound. They will attack you if you make a sound.
Okay.
Yes, so that's about it.
And what's the end goal of that whole story or the movie? Was it like, these two deaf or hard of hearing children were trying to escape or trying to get somewhere?
Yes, it's really about at the end of the movie. It's really about trust and believing to one another lah.
Okay. So if you take a look at what we watch as an individual, so Hidayah watched this film or movie called Quiet Place 2, two children hard of hearing trying to escape, trying not to get detected, noticed by the alien. And if we ask ourselves why do we watch movie, I think one is maybe we don't find enough entertainment in our life. Hence, we go to the Netflix, the Amazon Prime. Just for sharing, I am also using Amazon Prime and I noticed quite a few good gems there, but that's besides the point. I'm trying to say that the whole point about stories is stories take us to another world. And in us being transported and move into another world, we start to see a lot of new possibilities. So one, stories move us to another dimension. Number two, I think we find ourselves in stories. Certain stories, we find ourselves being able to relate to maybe the protagonist or maybe the people who are feeling stressed. So I could make a guess that maybe Hidayah liked to watch this film because maybe the stories of kinship, maybe the stories of struggle, maybe the stories of trying to have an adventure to escape the alien are some of things that related to you. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a connection to that. And I think the third thing would be the stories have a power to educate people, to teach people a lesson. So I think that's what Hidayah has mentioned. It's about being resourceful, working together, trusting in yourself, and hence you then can make it out to another world alive. So if we take a look at this, then going back to Hidayah's question, and pardon me for being the roundabout kind of approach, I always believe one, leaders should try to embrace stories because it is not just what you say, but it's how you say it as well. And sometimes stories allow what you say to be enveloped and packaged in what we call it a package or call it a fashion that allows you to be more appealing and more palatable. So for example, heavy hitting message. It's like, our daddies and mommy trying to say, hey, you have to work harder. Hidayah, you have to be more resourceful, right? So that's telling mode. And for a lot of us who were born in Asia, we've had our parents just tell things to us. Now, Hidayah, do you as an honest reflection, do you like your bosses to tell you to do everything?
No, not most of the time. Depends on like what kind they want me to do, what kind of task.
So obviously it depends on context.
Yes.
So there are times where obviously we need a very clear, uncomplicated answer to say, tell me what you exactly want me to do. But in terms of a motivational context or when you're inspiring people, sometimes, instead of telling, consider showing. And you can either show through your own stories or you can show through a story that you've encountered. So that's why to breach the question, I think, Hidayah, leaders can really do consider using stories of their own, of their people who are in the office, stories of their very employees so that people can realize that, wow, Hidayah has been working with me for the past 8 months and I didn't realize that she did something like that. So that can be very inspiring and that can build depth as well. So for all these purposes, I think stories are amazing.
Okay, I mean personally as an employee to Blissful Studios, I really love it when Huda and Amirul tell me stories of their past clients and all. And it really motivates me more to work with them.
Correct.
And I feel that, like I said, I only have 5 years of work experience, including my part-time, from very first part-time up to now full-time. And I've seen a few common mistakes in business leaders, and I feel that a lot of business leaders feel that the main motivation of employee is money. I mean, okay, it's right, but I mean, for people like me, right,
Yeah.
the reason why I joined Blissful is not because of money, it's
Yep.
because I want to gain experience and skill
Yep.
to continue upgrade myself.
Yeah.
So I would say that there's a lot more employees who are like me, like where our motivation is not money, but our is to improve ourselves. And another point is that a lot of leaders feel that all employees react to the same kind of motivation factors. They don't really understand that each of us have different
Different drivers,
yes,
reasons
different
that
drivers of
motivate
yes.
by-
Like
Yep.
for me, I like it when, like I said, I like it when they tell me stories.
Right.
And for some of my friends, they like it when they receive rewards.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
some of them they like it when they see friends around them and stuff like that.
Right.
So each employees have different kind of motivational factors.
Correct.
So you've been in this industry for how long?
I would say collectively about 12 years. Yeah.
So from these 12 years of your expertise, what are the common mistakes that you have seen in leaders when trying to lead their team?
I think in terms of leading a team and in this whole frame that we talk about, like online, virtual, remote, disconnected world, I think one of the biggest problems I see is an increasing issue of being disconnected. So like what you just mentioned is all symptoms of being disconnected, because we tend to think that the people we employ are primarily motivated by money. And if we start to take a look and bridge this with the previous question, when was the last time you as a leader, you really sat down to understand that person's story? Right, that person's story. And if I step into Hidayah's boss's role, then my role is to really to understand what's your story like. And if you look at each and every one of us, we are struggling, but we also endeavoring. Right, struggling is our current kind of circumstances. What are we not having enough? What are we sort of trying to fight on a day-to-day basis? But there's also an endeavoring, which is what we're trying to go forward and towards. So maybe Hidayah, the fascination or her fascination with stories could be one day she wants to be a storyteller herself. She wants to write more stories. She wants to help more people tell the stories. Then that is her hidden motivation. So I think the first problem of disconnect really rise with the inability as well as the non-willingness to really understand people at the individual level, right? So I think that's one. The second biggest problem that I do see is that, as what we alluded to at the start, with this whole new complex environment, we, instead of using tools in the right way, we are getting more disconnected. We are not so much, we are just like business as usual. I work with a lot of corporate clients, their favorite term is BAU. BAU stands for business as usual. So I think there's a time for me and for us to be BAU, but there's also a time to be HAU, which is human as usual. How do you be human and humanize with your team, and really to use communications and the communications platform as a way to connect with people and to understand their well-being. I really believe that when you serve your employees, they are being well taken care of, they can then serve the customers or clients that you're trying to reach out. So I think two biggest problems: disconnect with employees, and two, not really helping employees to stay well, stay empowered, and stay ahead in this kind of world that we're living in right now.
Okay. I just have a sudden thought. Okay, is it important that business leaders or even just team leaders, is it important that they have this, like, I don't know how to say it, like they switch from bosses to boss and client to boss and employee? Is it important for them to like switch, like personality, something like that?
I would say personality, but it's in terms of what we call as sometimes, in the language term, we call this code switching. So if I'm speaking to an Ang Mo versus I'm speaking to a local person, I wouldn't use the same style and brand of English. So for example, if I'm interacting with a Caucasian client and then I go to an economic rice store and say, hi, I want this like a fried chicken and this, makes me sound very, very pretentious. But I think what Hidayah you're alluding to, or you're sort of like pointing and angling us towards, I think you need a different persona and style and approach when you're liaising. Yep.
Okay.
So I think the persona is what we are capable of. So for example, I don't speak like this to my 5-month-old. He'll be totally like afraid and say like, "Ooh, who's this fuddy daddy who's trying to like speak to me with a deep, resounding voice?" I'll do babbles with him. I'll giggle with him. I'll use the favorite toys. But obviously, I can't do this with my clients because they'll think I'm crazy and they'll just like send me off. So I think, yes, you do need to code switch in the corporate communications context. and you be very, very mindful. And I think one of the governing question is not so much who you need to be, but who they need you to be. Right? It's not so much who you need to be, but who they need you to be. So for example, if you're liaising with like a senior management, they need you to be decisive, they need you to be straightforward, they need you to be direct and clean and precise. When you're speaking with employees, sometimes, as we mentioned just now, there are times to be straightforward, but there are times to be also a caring leader. So there was one time whereby I was doing a video production. One of my corporate clients, very unfortunately, her grandma just passed on. And I think the boss was very, very kind to say, hey, let's give her a bit of time because she was one of the managers who's managing our production. So even for me, I'm not directly managing her. In fact, I'm just working with her. She's my client. I even reached out to her and I first sent her a text on WhatsApp, and then I used a voice message because voice message communicates warmth, empathy, and energy. And I said something along the lines whereby, hey, I know how it may be a very, very challenging period for you because when my grandma passed on, it was one of the most difficult moments for me. I just want to wish you well, and if there's anything that I can be of support, just drop me a message. You see, this kind of things are what I feel, you have the ability and flexibility to move between spaces, but back to the same question, who do they need you to be, and what do they need to hear from you?
Okay. All right. Okay. So, anyways, I just would like to apologize for the drillings. There's space upgrading nearby our studio, so apologize. I would like to apologize for the drilling at the background. And anyways, Ben, talking about clients,
Yep.
Ben, have been a valuable client to Blissful Studios and still is a very loyal client to us. Okay, for that, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Even from before I joined Blissful up till now, he is still working with us and he still trusts us with his videos. So can you share with us how have Blissful been with you? How have we helped you out in your business?
Okay, so I just want to reframe and flip it to the other side. If you're just looking for a videographer who just want to point, shoot, and there has no direction whatsoever, don't look for Blissful Studios, okay? I want to repeat it again. If you want to look for a videographer who just point, shoot, follow you around with no direction, no support, no coordination, don't look for Blissful Studios. So you can really understand from where I'm angling towards. I think Blissful Studios has been a very integral part. In terms of my work, I do a fair bit of professional speaking, live or in person. I do a fair bit of helping my students in the life insurance industry thrive in this whole social media-ly driven world and to build a brand impact influence online. So for these purposes, I've always turned to Blissful because I think they are part producers but part practitioners as well. Particularly, I think Huda, who is one of the founders of Blissful Studio, she's also very much a teacher and a coach as well. So she understands, one, as a trainer, as a coach, as a personality, who you need to be, what you need to say, how you need to say it. So I like that they always have their perspective in the entire process. I think the second thing that they do is the production expertise. So for example, as a simple live kind of experience, they have 3-point camera that's pointing at us. I think they do put in a lot of effort to make sure that production-wise, it's not something to be neglected. And I think for me, over the years, I've much appreciated Blissful's support because, sometimes when you see the final product and you say, wow, you can actually look much better on camera, on screen than how you look normally, then wow, that gives me a bit of hope, you see. Like if you meet me in person, hopefully you wouldn't be disappointed, but you see on video camera, wow, that crystal sharp, that clarity, and everything about production is very, I would say, diverse, right? From audio, visual, sound, everything that you have to manage. So there's perspective, there's production expertise, and I think the third P would be that positioning. Blissful Studios really make an effort to really understand you, your story, so that it's not just like a off-the-shelf kind of production, but they understand who you need to be and how you need to be positioned in your industry to the kind of audience you want to appeal to. And I think, of all this value-added kind of components that they put into the process, it makes them a joy and delight and really blissful to work with.
Okay, thank you so much for wow. But anyways, right, I just remember one of my favorite projects with you is that when we had a video shoot that requires us to dance. Do you remember? We had to dance in the in the dance studio, and
correct.
we were following a TikTok video through YouTube. And back then, I wasn't active on TikTok at all. So that was actually my first time dancing, following a TikTok video with you. And to be honest, since then I've been active on TikTok.
There's the plus and perks of working in a video production company and doing a variety of projects. She discovered her own passion and her own story as well. Yes.
Okay, anyway, so
Before that, you should let the audience know what's your TikTok handle so they can follow you.
okay. It's okay, it's okay.
Maybe we can post-produce it and put it in the Facebook comments, and then can drive a bit of traffic there. But anyway, just okay, you can lead us there.
Okay, anyways, it's Daya Ridwan, but okay. You should start a TikTok also,
I should try.
Confirm you have a lot of the followers,
Yep.
I'm very sure. Okay, anyway, so let's just end off the sharing. So according to your points, right, earlier that you mentioned, so the importance of the hidden mystery of motivating your team is obviously communication, which that is the most important factor in that. And through communication, you need the purpose, right? The purpose of the meetings and all, and then you need to know what to say with the correct person. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
So I would say that the pattern of you talking to someone affects the feelings of the receiver of your speech.
Very much so.
Okay, and I would just say that even though video calls are now the new norm, we should learn to adopt and utilize it properly to make sure that our team is motivated as ever.
Yeah.
So, do you have any last words for this topic?
So I think to give a closing as a wrap up, I think Hidayah did a beautiful job. So if you can just drop her some comments. I do not know if you're watching, who's watching, but Hidayah actually puts in a lot of efforts with the cue cards and all, and the curation of the conversation and topics. I think fundamentally, let's go back to basics. The reason why we communicate is we want to give a message as well as be heard. So I think as bosses as well as managers, the giving a message is oftentimes the very, very simple thing, or the thing that we do all the time, right? Like employee do this, right? Ben do this, Hidayah do this. So I think that becomes very clear. But we want to ask ourselves, what does it take for us to be heard, to be understood, to be acknowledged? And I think in this world we live in, we cannot be so selfish. I think the best leaders I've worked with, they're oftentimes thinking more about the audience, thinking more about who they are, what they need, versus just about themselves. And the ironic thing is sometimes when you do that, you actually become more successful at communicating messages and intents. So I think, for example, as a boss, you want your people to work hard, you want your people to support you, you want your people to drive your agenda. But the key thing here is what's common is the people, people, people. If you take care of the people, you communicate well with them, you speak to them such that they are respectful, you honor them, you know their story, you know what's their drive and motivation, you know whether it's out for TikTok, for stories, or is it out for money? And I think, when you really help your employees to be the best versions of themselves, then it allows them to also be helping you, contributing to your company and your company's mission and vision. So I think fundamentally, let's not forget and overcomplicate things. I think as a boss, really do care for your people. When you do care for them, you speak with care, with love, with concern, then a lot of things will then straighten out. Obviously, I'm simplifying because of the interest of time, but I like to always think that, if you go back to the basics will guide us to the complicated.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for your insights. Okay, before we end, how can our audience reach out to you?
Sure, I am mostly on most platforms except TikTok, so I would defer to Hidayah if you want to visit TikTok, but I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and my name is Benjamin, last name is Loh, L-O-H. So if your teams, yourself, or if you know of any corporate leaders who may be struggling to get their intense messages as well as objectives across to an audience, whether online world or offline world, or they're struggling to connect with in-between generations, perhaps we can have a conversation and see how we can work together.
All right, okay. Anyway, before we end, thank you so much for spending your time, and we really value your effort coming to our studio.
Yep.
And I guess that's all for today's live. We will be going live again next Friday, so stay tuned for that. Follow us on Instagram at Blissful Studios SG, our Facebook page at Blissful Studios, this Facebook page, and also our YouTube channel also at Blissful Studios. And with that, bring your life to life. Stay blissful.
And stay safe, stay well.